Well, hello there, challengees, and welcome to the Always Better Challenge Show, the show that helps you take steps today for a better, happier tomorrow. I'm Joe Bedford, your host, and as always, we're going to start today's episode with a quote. And today's quote is from Lois P. Frankel, and the quote is, "Money per se does not make you happy. It's what it enables you to do with your life." Now, today's show is going to be a little bit different. It's actually going to be a lot different. We haven't done a show like this yet. And I'm not sure how long today's show is going to be. I'm not sure if it's going to be a full-length episode or not. It's going to be longer than the Turbo Boost episodes for sure. And it may be the same, around 30-minute length, but it may not be. So today, I'm going to do a product review. This is top of mind for me because this is a product, a software tool actually, that I just purchased, and it does relate to a topic that I have previously discussed. So I thought it would be definitely worthwhile to talk about this today. I do want to make clear that this product is not a sponsor of the show. I am not an affiliate of this program, which will probably become pretty obvious as I talk about it because I'm not giving it a great review, unfortunately. The program that I'm talking about today is Quicken, and specifically the Quicken 2018, the brand new version of Quicken. For those of you who may not know, Quicken is a financial management software, and as you recall, again, from a previous episode, I talked about financial management tools. I mentioned that the tool that I was using at that time was Mint, which is a free online tool and an app that you can install on your phone or iPad. But I made the decision to try Quicken out. Now, I should state that I have used Quicken in the past. Well, okay, yeah, I guess I'm going to go ahead and back up to the beginning here. Quicken was actually the first financial management software that I used. I was one of the early users, I'm sure. Up until the mid-90s, which is when I was exposed to Quicken, I believe it came out around that time, I used pen and paper to keep track of things. But when Quicken came out and when I got a computer, I started using it, and it was groundbreaking, at least for me at the time, to be able to use a computer program to do the things that I'd been doing using pencil and paper. And obviously you could do a lot more things on the computer. It had a lot more functionality than I ever could have dreamed about doing with my little scribble. So I was an early user, and I stopped using Quicken about 15 years ago. And I didn't remember all the reasons why I stopped using it, but as we'll talk about in today's review, I'm remembering some of those reasons. Well, just to tell you, first of all, a little bit about why I decided to make this, at least, temporary switch. One of the reasons, I think I mentioned this in the previous episode when I talked about Mint. My dear wife is not a big fan of Mint, and you should know my wife is a certified public accountant. So I certainly do take her advice seriously in matters such as this. And she didn't like it. And it's probably not surprising given her accounting background. Because the one thing that Mint does not do, and that other users I've seen online have criticized it for, is it does not do conventional like accounting type reports. Like the thing that, Judy, my wife, criticized, which she said, I can't do a profit and loss statement. I can't do a cash flow statement. I can't do a balance sheet. And so that was her criticism of that. And since I'm managing the finances for our family, for both of us, I decided to give Quicken a try again, and, so that she would have those reports available to her. Mint gives me the data in a format that I like, but I'm hoping that Quicken will give it to her in a format that she likes. And, I still have all the information that I want, hopefully, as well. There was another part of this, and I don't want to talk too much about this. I mean, that probably doesn't really matter to you guys, but just the quick version is that a question came up about our finances, and my system that I'd been using to date, which I love, but I really couldn't come up with a satisfactory answer to that question based on the information that I had. So that was the other reason that I wanted to give Quicken another try. And I guess it was kind of a third reason, which is, as I stated, I've used it before, but I hadn't used it for 15 years, and I knew there were things that I didn't like about it at the time. So I was very optimistic that given that 15 years had passed, that the software has had 15 years to get better, and that probably a lot of the problems that I had with it have been fixed or eliminated or updated, and I expected it to be just probably 15 years better. Unfortunately, sort of to give you a teaser of how this review is going to go, it was kind of like reinstalling Quicken and starting to use it again. I kind of felt like I was going back in a time machine to 1995. It really doesn't seem to have changed very much, if hardly at all. It's very similar to what it was. So that's my. If you don't want to watch the whole review, there's my capsule review. Is that it is not the most. It doesn't feel like a very up to date software with all the the technology and advancements that we've had. It kind of was going back in time, I felt like. So I am going to do my best to do the pros and cons of the program, and I am going to go ahead and start with the cons. And as I said, unfortunately, there are quite a few. The first problem that I ran into was when I was adding my accounts to Quicken. Again, I think probably most of you know, but for those of you who don't know how financial management software works, you add your credit card accounts, your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts, any account that you have online access to. One of the nice things about these programs is that you can, add those to Quicken, and then Quicken will, in a perfect world, automatically download the transactions as they hit your accounts. So I was trying to add in all of my accounts, and I ran into, I'm going to say, fairly significant problems. There were 3 accounts that I was unable to add to Quicken for different reasons. And I was unable to resolve that on my own, and to get it resolved, I actually had to call Quicken support, and I'll talk more about that experience in a moment. But I did have to call and spend a good amount of time on the phone with them to get these accounts added to the program. So there's a big con right off the bat. The second con that I listed in my notes here is that, again, in the year 2017, it's the 2018 version of the software supposedly, I found it curious, annoying, whatever you want to call it, that I had to tell Quicken when I signed in to update my accounts, to download that, the new transactions that had occurred. I was kind of like, really? I have to tell it? I mean, it isn't just going to automatically keep my stuff up to date. Now, as I say, I put that in my notes, but after I wrote this episode, not long after, I actually did find the little checkbox in the program that does enable you to automatically update. In other words, I've got Quicken set up now to where every time I launch it, it does automatically update. I'm still listing that as a con, though, because that checkbox was buried somewhere. I mean, I'm lucky I stumbled across it. It was certainly not intuitive or easy to find. And then, personally, I feel like, why don't you set that as the default, that it's automatically going to update? And if you have a check box somewhere, make that to, undo that to where if somebody doesn't want it to update, because isn't everybody going to want it to automatically update? Isn't most everybody going to want it to be as easy to use as possible? Well, apparently not, because you do have to go in and find this checkbox. Another con is that after getting everything set up, one of my accounts still does not update automatically. I can update the account in Quicken, but I have to go in and manually do it, and that is quite a thing that you have to go through to do that. So what you have to do, I go into that account in Quicken, I click on update, and then it actually takes me to the website for my bank. I have to log on to my account on the website, just like I would do if I was, looking at the account myself. and then I have to go into the account, and then there's a download icon on their website, and that downloads a file, which I can set the date ranges and whatnot. Then I have to go back to Quicken. I have to import that file into Quicken. It is quite a ordeal. Fortunately, this is not an account I use a whole lot, so it's not necessarily something I'm going to have to do every day, but that's still pretty aggravating. And now you may say, well, maybe that's not Quicken's fault, maybe that's your bank's fault. Well, here's the thing, though. I wouldn't know this maybe if I wasn't a Mint user previously. Mint doesn't have any problem updating that account automatically. I never had to go to my bank's website to update it. Mint, so I know the capability exists to do it. So why can't Quicken do it? Again, this is going to be my phrase that I'm going to repeat several times in this interview. In the year 2017, why have we not figured that out yet? So another con there. Another con, I maybe should have listed this one first. This one to me was kind of huge. I was shocked. I don't think that's an overstatement to say. You cannot use this version of Quicken on a network, or at least they strongly recommend against doing so. And so I had to pick a computer to use this on, and I can't really use it on any of my other computers. I mean, I can, but it's not an easy, simple thing to do, and I'm almost scared to do it. I almost think it's not a good idea to do it because I'm afraid of what it will do to my Quicken file, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the whole Quicken file thing in a minute. But yeah, can't use it on the network, or not supposed to, and difficult to use on other computers. I actually initially installed it on my main desktop computer, and when I realized that was the only computer I was going to be able to use it on, I was like, oh, I don't want to be locked to this one. So I then installed the software on my laptop and then backed up my Quicken file onto a thumb drive and then transferred it to the laptop that way. And, so that's something you could do if you really wanted to use it on different computers. But again, that makes me nervous about what could happen to the Quicken data file if you're doing that all the time. So I'm going to try to keep it on the laptop and just use it there, but that's kind of a drag. The next con goes along with what I'm alluding to in this previous one, which is the Quicken data file. So since this is not a cloud-based app, or whatever you want to call it, like Mint is, all of my data is actually stored in a file on my computer. Well, if you use this program for years and years and years and years and years, and see, this is something I remember from before when I used it, eventually that file gets really, really big because you're putting, just more and more information into it all the time. And so it gets really, really big. And I don't know. That was one of the things that really appealed to Mint about me when I started using it, was that I didn't have a file per se. It was just all in the cloud, and all the data was just there, and I didn't have to worry about all this big file management. I didn't have to worry about it taking up room on my computer. I didn't have to worry about the file getting corrupted. I didn't have to worry about backing up the file, which is something that you still have to do with Quicken. Again, I feel like I'm back in the 90s here with this, kind of. So that is another con for me, is the huge file that the program eventually generates. I just alluded to another con that I've got listed here, which is that you have to manually back up the file if you want to have a backup, which of course you do. So that's another drag that I didn't have to do before with Mint. So I'm having to, it prompts you, it says, do you want to back up your file? And I back it up, it downloads to my computer, and then to give it an extra level, I'm uploading it into a cloud software that I use, where I keep my files, file management software. So again, it just seems like it's like, yeah, that's the best way we've figured out to do it in 15 years. I wasn't crazy about that. Another, and I'm going to call this a huge con, annoying, aggravating con, is that the software has just these weird restrictions that I keep running into. And they know about them, and they don't fix them. The one that jumps out at me is I was using the debt reduction planner tool, and I was entering in our car loans and whatnot. And I was entering in the exact information that I have on the car loan, including the interest rate and the minimum payment each month. Quicken wouldn't let me put it in because it said it was wrong. It said that the minimum payment you put in is too low for this interest rate. Well, guess what? That's what it actually is. So obviously it's not too low. That's what it is. And so I went online to try and see what light I could shed on this. And sure enough, I found a Quicken employee on a message board somewhere that said, oh yeah, we use a certain algorithm to determine that. And not all lenders necessarily use that same algorithm. So we're aware of that issue. But they don't fix it. Why is Quicken, what do they care what number I put in there? But you literally can't move past that point in the tool unless you change the number to what they think it should be. And they know about it, and they don't fix it. So that kind of feels like, well, it's our way or the highway. It's just like, why? Not a fan of that. This is maybe a less of a con, and some of you probably won't care about this at all, but as a business owner, it's just a little thing. But so Quicken has like preloaded categories suggested, for want of a better way of putting it, for your spending and for your income. So things like and with subcategories. So like I can't remember exactly what they call the category, food and dining. I can't remember, maybe food. So that's a category. And then you got subcategories like fast food and restaurants and groceries and whatever else. And now, in fairness, yes, you can create custom categories, but it just, again, amazed me. As a business owner, there are very specific categories that I want to track for my taxes. And the tax code is out there; it's a known thing. And so, in other words, the point I'm trying to make is these categories are ones that most any business owner is going to want to have to track. That specifically plug in to lines on the 1040 form. So why don't you have those categories in Quicken? I mean, it's a minor thing, and yeah, I can add the categories in, but why is that not there? Why is that not there? That's a category that a good number of people. Oh, and I should mention too, the version of Quicken that I bought, it is specifically for business. There's different levels you can get. This one actually is the most expensive one and the only one that allows you to manage business income and expenses. So that's the one I got, and I have to add in manual categories. I just thought that was a little crazy. Another thing, and Some folks might disagree with me on this. I don't know. I'm not sure if my wife is on board with this yet. But a big part, and I remember this being an aggravation before with this program, and I thought surely they'd done away with it, and they haven't. It tries to reconcile your accounts. Now, for those of you who are my age or older or somewhat younger, but who grew up in a time when people still balance their checkbooks, and I know some of you are saying, "Well, I still balance my checkbook." Well, so reconciling that's what Quicken is trying to mimic here somehow. So it's a big thing where you download your transactions and it tries to reconcile them, and they don't reconcile. And in my opinion, when you are dealing, okay, let's go back and talk about why we used to reconcile our accounts. So we would have a checking account, right? And as we wrote checks, we would keep track with pen and paper in our register in our checkbook. Okay, I wrote a check for this amount, and now my balance is this. And I wrote a check for this amount, now my balance is this. Made a deposit for this amount, now my balance is this, right? So that's what we would do. In the pre-internet days, then we would once a month get a statement from the bank, and we would want to reconcile our check register with our bank statement to make sure that they agreed. That makes perfect sense. We could have made a mistake. We could have entered in something wrong in the register or miscalculated the balance or something like that. So we wanted to compare those two and make sure they reconciled. That makes perfect sense. But in today's age and the way we do things now, the information in Quicken, we're downloading it from the bank. It's like we've got the statement all the time. So reconciling it, what are we reconciling it to? That makes no sense to me. Reconciling accounts, in my opinion, is outdated. Now, yeah, I keep receipts, and so as the transactions are downloaded, I reconcile that way to make sure I've got a receipt for that. And yeah, that's what I paid. Da, da, da. You know, that kind of thing, sure. But actually trying to reconcile a balance, I mean, it's the balance. What are you reconciling? And so, and what makes it aggravating is then so many times Quicken will say, well, this account doesn't balance, but it's something just random like the opening balance for the account, which is an arbitrary number, is wrong. And why I say it's an arbitrary number is when you set up Quicken and it downloads your information, it downloads it for whatever amount of time. It can be different in each account. And I don't want to get into it, try to explain this in depth. Just trust me. So that's what was happening. So I had these opening balances that when Quicken was trying to reconcile the software decided it didn't make sense. So I basically just had to go in there and change the opening balance so that the ending balance was what it actually was, or so that Quicken thought it was what it actually was. And it's just arbitrary. It accomplishes nothing. And to me, the whole reconciling idea makes no sense when you're using financial software that downloads the transactions. It just doesn't make sense. Again, I'm back in the 90s. Sorry, I paused there because I'm looking at my notes and I've got an abbreviation here. I'm trying to remember what I meant. Okay, I've got that. Okay. Another, what I'm calling a con of the program, again, this could be a matter of opinion. Some folks may think this is a pro, but this is a very complex program. It's got so many menus and so many submenus and so many choices and so many options. And to me, it kind of has too many. I mean, I don't want to have to go to get my PhD in Quicken to fully utilize the tools. So, that's just my feeling. I mean, yeah, maybe it's great to have it just feels overly complex to me. And like a perfect example is when I got on the phone with the rep when I needed help, getting my account problem resolved, he had me validate the file. So that's buried in the menu somewhere. And valid, what even is that? Why? I don't know. It just seems overly complex and complicated to me. Another, I'm going to call this a big con, and this makes sense though, based on what I've told you about how you can only use it on one computer, and your data file lives there. So there is a we're out of the 90s. This is exciting. Are you ready? They have an iPhone app. Quicken has an iPhone app, and they have an iPad app. So you can have Quicken on your iPhone and your iPad. Isn't that great? But guess what the problem is? The apps don't do anything. They really don't. Near as I can tell, you can do two things with the app. You can look at your information, so you can see it. You can see it. You can review it. There's that. And I guess you can add a single transaction on the go, like if you're spending cash or whatever, you can enter in a specific transaction on the go. That's it. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. You can't manage your account. You can't do what you can do on the computer. You've got to be on the computer to do it. So, seemed strange to me. Another con, I'm not going to gripe too much about this one, but Quicken used to be you bought it and you paid for it and it was yours. They've gone away from that. I know they're not the only ones that have done this. It's a subscription model now. So you have to pay every year if you want to keep using it. It's never really yours. Another con, and I'm going to be fair here, this is probably not totally their fault and maybe not their fault at all, but you can't, and this is a perfect example because here it is December when I'm setting this up and I'm adding my accounts in. So really, when it downloads my transactions, I want it to download to the first of the year because everything I do is on a calendar year. So if I start using this program in December and I don't have the information going back to January 1st, that's of limited value to me. And like I say, maybe it's probably not Quicken's fault, so maybe I shouldn't even mention this in here, because I guess they say, well, it's up to your bank how much information it gives us or whatever. But it's just an aggravation. Maybe that's not fair. I guess it would be the same thing if you used with Mint. So maybe the advice is, if you're changing financial management programs, do it on January 1st. It's probably a good time to do it. I'm looking at my last con here. I put that it suggests too many categories in my opinion. Maybe make it so I have to click down to the subcategories. Again, it's just like overwhelm for me. When I want to look at what I'm doing, I want, a few basic categories. I want to be able to see that sort of at a glance. And so like if I'm pulling up, like say a spending report, show me what I spent on food. Don't show me restaurants and fast food and groceries and whatever other subcategories you have. That's too much, because if that's for every category, you've got categories. So I mean, yeah, if you want that information, my idea is why not just show the main categories, and then if I want to click on one of those to drill down further, let me be able to do that. But let me be able to get a big picture view more easily. So that's my last complaint there. So now, it's not all bad. Let me talk. There are some pros, some advantages to the program, so let me talk about some of those really quick. Unfortunately, not as many as I mentioned in the cons. There is one which for me as a business owner, I will admit is huge. I was very excited when I realized the program did this, and quite honestly, I'm pretty sure it did it back when I used it before, but I never noticed it or realized it, and I probably wouldn't have been that interested in it back then anyway. But as a business owner, one thing that it allows you to do is if you scan a receipt, you can then attach that scanned image of that receipt to the actual transaction in Quicken. So that's awesome. I love that, because if I'm looking at a transaction in Quicken and then I think I need the receipt for whatever reason, I don't have to go looking for it. It's right there. I love that. That's a big plus. I've already mentioned that it gives reports that my accountant wife likes and that I find some value from as well, so that's definitely another pro. I mentioned Mint does not provide those official type financial reports. I do believe that some of the reports will save me some time in my record keeping and management that I do, so I'm got my fingers crossed at least. I'm hopeful about that. A big pro, definitely an advantage over Mint, is that entering transactions is very fast. I guess that's one advantage to having the file right there on your computer, and it's not having to go over the internet or whatever. Mint could be slow sometimes when you're entering things in. Quicken is lightning fast, so I liked that quite a bit. I do like the one-line display that Quicken gives you. In other words, it has one transaction per line. It did take me a while to get used to that. You can change it to where it gives you 2 lines per transaction, and that's actually how I used it when I used it before, but I was just finding that cluttered, and I switched it back to 1 line, and I'm liking that, but there was an adjustment factor there, to that. I do believe that it's going to be easier to track transfers between accounts. Like, for example, if you move money from your checking account to your savings account or that type of thing, that could get a little confusing in Mint sometimes, and I do believe in Quicken, I believe it's going to make more sense, because it just is. I believe that's going to be easier and it's going to work better. Another pro is that you can track your cash spending. If there was a way to do that in Mint, I don't know what it was, but you can't. Now, obviously, you're going to have to manually update it because there's nowhere to download that from. But you can say, okay, on this date, I've got this much cash, and then you can keep track of incomes and outgoes there. It does allow... Almost nobody watching is going to care about this, but I do. You can do business tags in Quicken. I guess you can do other kinds of tags. But for example, I at different times in my life have had different businesses that I was doing at the same time. Well, with this tags feature, I can track all of my business expenses, but then I can tag them based on which business they apply to. So that's a nice factor that I'm going to like. I know most people aren't going to care about that. I do give thumbs up to the phone support since I had to use it. I was on the phone with them for almost an hour, but the gentleman that helped me was very knowledgeable. He took me step by step through a troubleshooting process. We did figure out what, both of us together figured out what the problem was and got it fixed. So I give him a thumbs up on that. I didn't have to wait too long. I did get premium support with the version that I purchased, so I was a little surprised that I still did have to wait on hold to get a rep, but it was pretty short hold, so I'll take that. Last pro is that some of the reports look really cool if I ever figure them out. It's like I said, back to the cons, is that a lot of this seems needlessly complex to me, but maybe that's just opinion on my part. So that's it. That's my review of Quicken 2018. Just to let you know, you might be curious, well, are you going to keep using it given that you've got all the cons? I'm going to stick with it for a while and try to give it a really fair trial. I mean, I've paid for it for the year. I think they do have a return window. I can't remember. It's probably 30 days. So, you know, if I'm hating it in 30 days, I might reconsider it. But I do hope that the pros are going to be enough to make this a worthwhile thing and the cons won't drive me completely crazy. The real drag is that for right now, and I'm not sure how long I'm going to feel like I need to keep doing this, but I feel right now like I need to use both. In other words, I'm having to update everything in Quicken and in Mint because I just don't trust what I've got in Quicken yet, because kind of that thing I told you about where I couldn't go back for the whole year. Oh, and yeah, I mean, yeah, in honesty or fairness or whatever, I could have went in and manually entered in all those transactions for the whole year, but of course I didn't want to do that. So I'm going to stick with it for a while. So that's it. That's the Quicken 2018 review. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this show, and if this is something you'd be interested in the future. This is the first product review type show I've done, so let me know what you think. I know that's a little bit outside of the motivation, inspiration kind of thing, but it is a tool that you can use to make your life better. But let me know what you think. You can comment in the comments section below. If you haven't subscribed to the Always Better Challenge show, please do so. You can click right down there or click my little thumbs up when you see it up here in the corner of your screen. And please consider signing up for our free, did I mention they're free, motivational emails. Those go out every weekday and you can sign up for that at our website, abetterchallenge.com, abetterchallenge.com. Thanks so much for watching. This is the Always Better Challenge show. I'm your host, Joe Bedford. Until next time, go out there and make it happen.